Welcome back to the T.N.Bull podcast. My name is Jay. I'm back with my co-host today, who is Will. How are you today, Will? You well?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm not bad, thank you very much, mate. First time on the show. How are you feeling?
Yeah, not too great after Arsenal's result last night, to be honest with you. But it's one of them. I was well excited when you asked me to come on the show earlier today. I've always got plenty of football opinions, controversial alike. So, buzzing for it, mate.
Well, I'll tell you something, Will. You're a man I haven't ever been heard described as a man of few words. You've always got an opinion on something.
Certainly.
So just so our fans know, we've got a lot of American and actually a Filipino now listener.
Oh, wow.
Not. Will is an Arsenal fan and myself is a Tottenham fan. So in the Premier League, they're huge rivals. Currently, it's basically a race to the bottom between both of our teams. It's unreal. I mean, we'll start off with you guys. I mean, how do you think Arteta's performing, Will?
Arteta, you see, it's a weird one. But personally, I think he's lucky to still be in a job. We had that really, really poor run from sort of mid-November, beginning of November onwards. I think we went 12 games, or it was 9 or 12 where we didn't get a win. And every game that went by when we were performing as poorly as we were having men sent off left, right and centre. I was sort of looking at it and I'm thinking, how can Arteta still be in a job? The board stuck with him purely because I personally think they're tight and they don't want to branch out for a new manager. I think Arteta was a cheap option. Came with some good references. Fergie said he was a good guy. Wenger said he'd make a good manager. Guardiola also said he'd make a good, a great manager. And I think that's what tipped Josh Kroenke to push him towards us. I'm still undecided in answer to your question on how is he doing. I do think there's a manager in there. I don't think this was the right job for his first job. And it's something that we as Arsenal fans have got to evaluate at the end of the season. Is he the right man for the job? Come the end of the season, it'll be coming up to 2 years since he's had it. And I've not seen much of an improvement from when Emery was here. So it is one of them, really. It's wait to the end of the season and decide from there onwards. So, yeah, it's a funny one with Arteta.
Was you Wenger in or out?
But you see, again, that's another difficult one. I respect and love Arsene Wenger more than most Arsenal fans. I thought what he did for the club, I don't even think the Invincibles was his greatest achievement. I think keeping us in the Champions League with Shamak up top was probably one of his greater achievements. I don't believe Wenger deserved the stick that he got from certain members of AFTV. I believe that it was time for him to go, but he deserved a lot more respect than what he got from us fans. And I don't like the way that it was done and the way that he was, the way that he left and the disrespect that he got in the final season and the seasons beforehand.
How old are you, Will? Sorry.
I'm 25, mate.
Right. So you're 25, right? So you're kind of nearest the same age as me. I'm guessing you can remember growing up where fan TV was limited just to Sky Sports commentary.
Yeah, fan zone.
Now, I know we can't get the toothpaste back in the tube, but how do you feel about fan TV? Do you know what I mean? Do you think it should be, because Arsenal is notorious for the negativity, and they try to push out that they're not negative, but we all know that when they lose, we all rush to go and watch them, and they know that's what gets the money, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's funny you should say that. The other day driving to work, I was actually listening to an AFTV podcast, and it had Gary Neville in it. Basically, Gary Neville had said the way that the Arsenal fans had conducted themselves, it was against Chelsea. We'd lost. He said it's ridiculous, it's embarrassing, and I think that fan that was holding the banner up for Arsene Wenger to leave, I think that's I think he called him an idiot, and AFTV weren't happy about this and said they wanted to speak to Gary Neville about it. Now with fan TV, I think if it's done right, it's good because it's something that the players can watch So, for example, back in the olden days, we're talking. I'll use Arsenal for an example because I know them well. You've got players like Tony Adams, Lee Dixon, Paul Merson, Ray Parlour, especially. They'd finish a game at Highbury. Then straight afterwards, they go down the local. They'd sit with the fans and the fans would tell them exactly what they thought of the game. Oh, you did this well, Tony. Come on, you didn't do this too well today. Blah 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 blah. And that's how the fans got the point across. And because of the way that football has gone and how it's sort of blown up, on an international stage over the past 30 years, they can't do that anymore. So players are not seeing what fans are saying. And I think fan TV is a good way of doing it. However, with Arsenal fan TV, exactly what you've just said, Jay, they are profiting, in my opinion, off of the downfall of Arsenal Football Club. I can't imagine that DT, and I'm not saying that they're unhappy when we win. I'm assuming, if we were to beat Tottenham 5-0, they'd be ecstatic and they get out of the ground and record something. However, with Arsenal, I don't think that DT and Troops, I know Troops has gone to the USA now. I don't think they sit at the end of a game when they've lost 3-1 to Southampton, just as an example. Not saying that happened. I don't think they sit there and go, oh, well, I'm really angry. I can't really be bothered to do a podcast on this tonight. I think they're there thinking, oh, this is going to be a moneymaker. We can lose our minds and earn the money. And I don't like that. I don't respect that part of fan TV whatsoever. I
think you've nailed it absolutely on the head. Whilst me and you, right, especially myself, when Spurs lose and we're playing horrible football, I don't think, I want to do a podcast. I think, screw this. I'm done with football. That's it. I'm going to wrestling now. Don't instantly think of the money and, people to flip out and get some new subscribers because I love my club, and I know you do as well. What do you think of your transfer business?
Honestly, I think we've had an incredible window. I really, really do. You see, it's difficult. We've only signed one player. Okay, and you could look at that and go,
hell of a player.
He is a great player, Martin Odegaard. He's coming from Real Madrid, successful loan spell at Sociedad. Now, the best thing about this is Sociedad came back in for him, and it was Arteta who rang him up and said, yeah, that's fine. You can go over. You can, be with Real Sociedad, but is that where you want to be? And I think the turning point for Odegaard is, this is my own personal opinion. I've not read this anywhere. I believe that Real Madrid aren't going to be taking him forward, if that makes sense. I don't think they're looking at him and going, right, this is the guy for the future. I think he's another one of those players that Real Madrid have had on the books. It's not quite worked for him, but how can you get in a squad over Modric, Toni Kroos, Casemiro? I know we can play on the wing, but they've got Eden Hazard for that. They've got Vinicius in backup. You can't look at Martin Odegaard and say you're going to get in over them. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think Arteta sort of said to him, I think the next club that you join on loan could be the club that Real Madrid will fully sell you to. Do you want to be at Sociedad, where you're finishing 7th or 8th in the La Liga every year, where you might have a good Copa del Rey run? Or do you want to come to Arsenal, where we're building a project, where we're going to be challenging for the FA Cup, for the League Cup, potentially breaking back into the Champions League? Do you want to be a part of that, or do you want to be a part of this? And I think that's what swayed him to come to Arsenal. But that's not even the best part of business. I think we've done this transfer window, in all honesty. We've shifted Deadwood, which to me is better than any buy because we've freed up a wage list for the summer. So,
well, I'm going to come on to the Ozil situation shortly because that's a whole segment, and I'm very sure that you've got some very strong opinions about it. Yeah. Whilst we're here, I'll go back to the question of Rowe. What do you think that young lad should do? Should you sell him? Should you loan him out? Or should he just be back up?
I think, Emile Smith-Rowe, I've been following him since he was in the under-18s. He's a Hale End boy. And on Arsenal Twitter, you get a lot of fallout where they're picking up these players who are from Hale End, who've broken through the academy. And as soon as they make it into the first team, they're like, these are going to be the next best Premier League player. They did it with Alex Iwobi. And he's now rotting on the Everton bench, for say. I think he scored 2 goals since he signed for Everton for £40 million. Brilliant business for Arsenal.
You guys should be arrested.
Yeah, we should.
You really should. You know,
we definitely good for the price that we got for Iwobi. But yeah, Joe Willock came through. He's all right. He's not the future of Arsenal midfield.
I heard some fans that really rate him, and I think Arteta rates him as well. But as an outside fan, I think he's just average, my friend. But that's me. I'm not watching him every game. I'm sure you can give me a bit more insight of Willock.
Willock's he's a difficult one. If you put him against the Europa League side from the depths of Denmark, and it's the first league, it's the first Europa League game ever, he will look good because he's playing against Danish farmers. But then if you stick him in the centre of midfield against Manchester City when he's got Rodri and De Bruyne to battle with, he looks exactly like he should, which is an academy product that has been shifted into the first team to save money on buying a backup. That is what Joe Willock is, in my opinion. I think he's a good footballer. I think he will do well within the Premier League. I don't think he could be with Arsenal, though. It's the same with Reece Nelson, another Hale End product who, he went on loan at Hoffenheim. He had a few good games for them and everyone's picking him up. And then he came back. He's been integrated into the squad. He's only scored in the Europa League this season against a minnow team. Do you know what I mean? These players are not here to do this. Eddie Nketiah is another one. He went to Leeds when they were in the Championship and Bielsa didn't even give him a game over Patrick Bamford. And this is no disrespect to Patrick Bamford, but if you are not getting games over a journeyman like him, you are not going to make it to Arsenal Football Club.
That's harsh. I rate Bamford, I think he's really pulled it back around, but again...
He has. He's proved a lot of doubt was wrong, I mean...
I know what you're saying.
The issue with Bamford is he had this label when he was at Chelsea of being, the next best English striker. Several loan spells later, and then he's found himself at Leeds, and he's doing well at Leeds. I'm not saying that Bamford isn't a great player. I think he's a fantastic mid-table Premier League player. But Arsenal, my analysis there is Arsenal are not a mid-table team. You can't, if Nketiah can't get a game over Bamford, who is lead starting striker, and they're a mid-table side, dropping into the bottom 10, he is not going to make it to Arsenal when we are looking to break back into the top 4 and potentially challenge for a league title within the next 5 years. It's just, to me, it's not going to happen for Nketiah, which is, the only player that's come from Hale End. Well, there's 2 players who come from Hale End that I'm looking at now thinking, yeah, these have got a future, and that is Smith Rowe and Bukayo Saka. So with Smith Rowe, I think he's absolutely flourished in his position. I've said this since the under-18s. I've liked the look of him. And if anything, it was nice to see Arteta playing with a number 10 again, because if you've watched Arsenal this season, a lot of our games, we've not had a number 10. And all of us fans have been screaming out saying you need that creative midfielder to give you that creative outlet. You've dropped Ozil, that's fine. I don't care what your reasons are for that. You're the manager, you're in charge, but you cannot play with 2 CDMs and then 3 in front of them without a creative attacking midfielder, because you're going to have Xhaka who sits back doing nothing. Ceballos is spinning more than a waltzer in the centre of midfield. We've got no one pushing the ball forward. Smith Rowe's brought us that, and look at the results. So
I'm going to struggle to pronounce his name, but you was talking about having a good window. Is it Gualzi? I can't pronounce it. You shift him out on loan.
We've got... So we've shifted Joe Willock to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Ainsley Maitland-Niles has gone to West Brom.
I can't believe that. I can't believe you've let him go, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we will. Kolasinac has gone back to Schalke on loan. Mustafi has gone to Schalke on a permanent transfer after getting his contract cancelled. And then Mesut Ozil's obviously signed for Fenerbahce. And you'll be surprised to believe I'm not with most Arsenal fans on Mesut Ozil and the way he left, but I'll talk about that when you introduce it.
Yeah. What about the other midfielder? Big hair. What's his name?
Big hair?
Yeah,
big hair. Matteo Guendouzi.
Guendouzi, that's Guendouzi. I can't pronounce his name, Guendouzi. Now, he was given the Golden Boy Award. You know, some think it's a hindrance, some think it's a great. I've heard he was a fantastic up-and-comer. Yeah. He's going to be one of the best players. I never rated him myself, but everyone else thought it was fantastic. It was amazing. Apparently his attitude's horrible. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think? Do you think he should be recalled? Because he obviously needs one like that. But if his attitude is that bad, and he's one for the, I mean, what are you saying, Will?
You see, with Guendouzi, it's a difficult one. He was brought in from a French League Two side. He came with high hopes. There was a lot of clubs that were after his signature, and he chose Arsenal. Now,
a lot, yeah.
Matteo Guendouzi. It was Emery who brought him in. It was Sven Mislintat who found him. And when he first arrived, I was looking at him, and I'd be lying if I said I knew who he was when he came. But that's the case with most signings nowadays. He arrived, and I remember watching him, straight off the bat, and he was a strong, commanding midfielder. And his first 5 games, he did not look out of place whatsoever. He wasn't the kind of midfielder like Pogba, where he's going to do 6 step-overs, nutmeg 4 players, and then score a 30-yard screamer, once in a while. But he was more of he reminded me a little bit of Abu Diaby. Can you remember him when we had him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Strong player. He's not afraid to tackle, will pick the ball up, and he will run. He will run at other players, and he will battle ram his way through. And what I loved about him the most was he was forcing passes forward. Granit Xhaka, he's changed his fortune at Arsenal, but I see it every week, and it infuriates me. He'll pick up the ball, he'll look forward, he'll have Bukayo on one wing, he'll have Nico Pepe on the other wing, he'll have Lacazette in front of him, and he'll turn out and he'll play it to Partey, who's 6 yards behind him. And I'm thinking, play the ball forward. But with Guendouzi, the turning point there was the Brighton game last season. He got Neil Maupay, the Brighton striker, by the throat, and then I think he got sent off. And then it was after the game, there was a bit of a spout on the pitch, and what Guendouzi said to Maupay was, "I earn more money than you. You'll never earn the kind of money that I earn." Now,
oh really?
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, with the whole grabbing him by the throat, showing that passion, that anger, that fight, I don't have an issue with that. I'm not saying grab people by the throat. That's not legal, in football. But I've got no issue with showing a bit of passion and throwing your weight about a bit and having a bit of an argy-bargy with another player because you're protecting your teammates. Because obviously Maupay is the one who injured Bernd Leno that game. But then when you bring in wages into it afterwards, I thought that was totally uncalled for, very disrespectful. And Arteta actually gave him a chance. This is true. Arteta turned to him and said, "I tell you what, if you want to play for us, that's fine, but I need you to apologise. You do not treat other professionals like that." And Guendouzi said, "I'm not apologising for protecting Arsenal Football Club." And in the end, he got his loan moved to Hertha Berlin, and he's been doing all right over there, to be honest with you. There was talks that he was going to get recalled this January, but Berlin basically said, "No, we really need him." And Arsenal, in the end, caved in and said, "Yeah." But it does look like he has a future with Arsenal if his attitude changes. But that could all change. We might be back in pre-season, have a really bad attitude, and Arteta just says, "Right, you know what, PSG can have him £15 million in a bit, mate." So,
would you be bothered?
I would, yeah, because I don't want another Serge Gnabry situation.
What?
Gnabry was... Well, there's another story with him. Apparently, he was tapped up to go to Wolfsburg, and then he was always inevitably going to join Bayern Munich because they get the best German talent. But Arsenal let him slip through the fingers. And I know he's not had a great season this year, but last season he won the quadruple with Hansi Flick at Bayern Munich. So he was a key player. He was an integral part, and Bayern Munich were hands down the best team in the world last season. And Gnabry was a part of that best team. So I don't know, if it's a PTSD when it comes to losing young talent like that, but that would be my argument in keeping him. But then again, I don't want to upset the apple cart and keep him in there. If he's going to wind players up and rub people up the wrong way, it's probably not worth it.
It seems very unfair, this next comment that I'm going to say to you. But if a lot of Arsenal players, I think, because Arsenal are a huge team, but I think if you sell your player and they go to another club, they'd be Xhaka going to Hertha Berlin, for instance.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy that you've got someone like that in your team who's not what happened to Robin van Persie's? You know, when if you're going to sell them, they're going to go to a much higher team. It seems that you've got a whole team of just average players.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're being harsh there at all. I think you're absolutely right. I think that is what has been the downfall of Arsenal recently. You can't compare Arsenal to Man City or to Chelsea because we just do not have that kind of funding. But one club you can compare us to is Tottenham Hotspur. And I know that, you know, you might think that this is a little bit not biased, but you can compare us to Spurs because Spurs work on a budget exactly the same as we do. You know, you've got Daniel Levy in charge, and he has had to work for a budget. Now, Tottenham Hotspur promoted youth. They brought in players that they thought were going to work, and I think Pochettino had a huge part in the success of what Spurs have done because he was smart, he was intelligent in the way that he spent money, in the way that he coached the club. And you think about this, Tottenham have built a brand new stadium, same as Arsenal did 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago. Tottenham have built a brand new stadium, but they still got money to spend. You know, the loan fee for Bale could have been, I don't know the exact figures of it,
50 million, I believe.
Yeah, 15 million. But Spurs still had that money to spend. Daniel Levy still looked at Spurs' squad and went, right, we need to strengthen on the wings. All right, here's Stefan Bergwijn for £23 million. Okay, we need a midfielder. Here's Tanguy Ndombele from Lyon for a club record fee. Here you go. Do you know what I mean? And Arsenal's...
These are the signings you should be making, by the way, in my opinion.
This is it. This is exactly it, you know. Tottenham have done that, even though they've been on a tight budget, but still they've spent money, they've invested well in good players, and that's why they're ahead of us. That's why Tottenham currently are a better team than us. Whereas Arsenal, you know, they looked at Arteta. I mean, Nicolas Pepe, this is true, this. The story is that... Emery turned around and said, I want Wilfred Zaha. I don't care how much.
That would have been awesome.
And Crystal Palace came back and said, yeah, £75 million, you can have him. And then Edu turned around and went, no, we're not paying that. Let's get Pepe for 72 million. And Emery's a bit like, what? That's not the player I wanted.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Pepe. I think he's still finding his feet in English football, but if Arsenal needed to learn from somebody on how to run a club when things are not so great, if that makes sense, all they needed to do was look 3 miles down towards Tottenham. That was it.
Well, we need to all look at the Leicester model. We all need to look at the Leicester model. And before we move on topic, and you talk about Pepe, I mean, to me, he's a £30 million rated player. Yeah. However, because you're doing it in installments, you had to pay a lot more. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the table. You guys are 10th. Yeah. You've had 22 games. We will talk about the Leeds comparison. They've got 2 games on you. They've only played 20.
Exactly.
After all this, you know, you could be down to like 12 or 14. It's crazy.
We could. You know? It's I can't even call it a dry patch with Arsenal anymore. I mean, last night was a freak show. I don't think David Luiz deserved to be sent off.
This is the Wolves who were terrible as well, by the way. Sorry for interrupting. This is a Wolves team that are 14. Yeah. You know, they haven't really got a striker.
Well, here's a stat for you. Arsenal unbeaten in the last 9 games. Wolves hadn't won a game in 8 games. And then they beat us.
It's not acceptable.
No, it's not. It's not. And I do believe that the refereeing decision to send David Luiz off was the turning point of the game. I think the game got flipped on his head then. I can't excuse Bernard.
Right decision or not?
You what, sorry?
Right decision or not?
To send David Luiz off? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I understand the concept of it. You know, in the referee's books, he's made no attempt to play the ball. He stopped a clear goal-scoring opportunity. But we have VAR for a reason. And you can quite clearly see on VAR that Luiz actually backs away from the challenge. He's letting Willian Jose get through on goal. You know, he's got no interest because he doesn't want to get himself sent off. And Willian Jose, he's a big lad, you know, and his stride catches David Luiz's knee. He feels the contact and down. from a Wolves perspective, they could call it payback for Raul Jimenez and what happened earlier on in the season. But yeah, I think that moment of madness was what flipped the game over for us last night. Moutinho's goal, nothing you can do about that. I don't think there's a goalkeeper on the planet that would have saved that last night. And then Bernd Leno, great keeper, but how brain dead do you have to be?
Martinez or Bernd Leno?
Personally, in the long run, I believe that Bernd Leno is the one to take Arsenal forward. I completely respect Martinez's decision to search for first-team football elsewhere. I think he's kept 12 clean sheets this season, which it's a good investment. They paid £20 million for him. You expect a keeper of that quality. But Villa are having a freak season, if you want to talk about Villa.
Well, we say freak season. I mean, they spent so much money.
Yes, they have. They stayed up, which was quite controversial given that the goal line technology was turned off at Bramall Lane, I believe. Which is actually what kept them in the division. But Villa's board looked at that and said, look, we struggled last season. Let's spend some money. Why aren't Arsenal's board doing that? Why aren't, Villa, who were relegation scrappers last season, they sold no great players. They kept hold of Jack Grealish, and then they said, right, let's bring in Ross Barkley, Ollie Watkins. They've spent. I think Villa had the best transfer window in the summer. I really do. I think they were brilliant, and I think that is now reflecting now on the table. I mean, Villa they're a point ahead of us, and they've played 3 less games.
We should have signed Grealish, and so should you.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I think Grealish would be expensive, and I don't think either Arsenal or Tottenham would want to pay the upwards of 100 million. It's going to cost.
It wouldn't have, though, 2 seasons ago. That's the point. 2 seasons ago, we both had the opportunity. Yeah. That's why we both need to look at our scouting system. But before I talk about William, and I believe you gave him a 5-year contract. Is William, that right?
3 years.
Yeah, he's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
3-year deal we gave him. There was a scandal at Arsenal about that. Basically, our old technical director, Raul Cianielli, is good friends with an agent called Kia, I can't remember his surname, Kia Corabin or something like that. Funnily enough, he is David Luiz's agent as well as Willian's agent. Wow. And when Willian said that he wasn't going to, renew his contract at Chelsea, because they did offer him one, they offered him a year extension. Kia contacted Arsenal and said, "Yep, you can have Willian on a free. We'll make sure that he plays it all out, but you give the guy 140 grand a week and sign him up to a 3-year deal." And there was some agent fees that were passed through there as well. And that's why Cianielli, he's been sacked now as Arsenal's technical director. So, Willian himself, I don't know, he just looks like he's mentally checked out of football. There was a game, it was a Man United game this weekend. Willian had just come on, fresh pair of legs, he was on the left wing. Smith Rowe picked the ball up in the centre of midfield, and there was a huge gap. I mean, a huge gap. Wan-Bissaka had been attacking. He was trekking back. William was free on his own. Just as Wan-Bissaka came back in, there must have been about a 10-metre gap between him and Maguire. Now, if that was Aubameyang, he'd have made that run down the left-hand side. Smith Rowe would have threaded the ball through, and Aubameyang more than likely would have taken a great first touch and slotted it into the bottom right-hand corner. William didn't even try to make the run. He was just stopping.
Yeah, it reminds me of Bale so much, Will. It really does. His whole attitude.
Gareth Bale, he's another one. I was listening yesterday. I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and I remember you were touching on the subject of Gareth Bale and what's going wrong for him at Tottenham. I don't think anything's going wrong. I just genuinely think that Gareth Bale has fallen out of love with the game. I think
100% agree. 100%
I think agree. Bale went to Madrid. I think Florentino Perez has treated him like garbage at Madrid, to be honest with you. I think the fans have treated him like absolute garbage. And I think Bale sort of thought, I'll get my own back by playing golf and not turning up to games or training or anything like that. And fair play to him, when you've got a fan base that, you've scored an overhead kick in a Champions League final to beat Liverpool and win you another Champions League to put you in the record spot, and your fans are still criticising you. You are going to mentally check out.
Crazy.
So I think he sort of thought, Spurs is going to be, I'll be rejuvenated, I'll be revitalised. I apologise for this. We've got puppies in the background.
It's all right, my friend. Third worst.
But yeah, basically, I feel as if Bale has sort of come to Spurs to try and get his career back on track, and it's just not happened for him because he's been training at 50% for the last 2 seasons. And then you come into a Mourinho squad where you're going to get absolutely beasted, fitness-wise and tactically-wise. And I think he's out of his depth now.
Well, that's what happens with Ali as well, isn't it? Ali's exactly the same with the training aspect of it. If you're not pulling your weight in training, then that's it. Now, before we go on to the Ozil, what everyone wants to know your opinions about, how do you think about your football playing style? Are you happy with it? Is it still just all the crossing? Because that's what all I saw against you. We just packed the middle and you just love crossing. And, there's only one man in the middle, Aubameyang, and he can't do anything. I believe you changed that to Lacazette. Is it still kind of style you're playing at the moment,
So,
Will?
with Arteta, he's quite stubborn. I say quite, he's very stubborn, in my opinion.
There's no plan B, just a plan A.
Arteta, when he, towards the end of last season, he beat some big names, beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final. He beat Liverpool in the league. He beat Liverpool in the Community Shield. He beat City in the FA Cup semi-final. And I was looking at that system that he had against the bigger teams where we sit back, we allow you possession, and then we counter-attack and score on the break. And at the time, that was like, right, this is brilliant. We're winning big games here. But then we'd go to, I don't know, we'd go to Wolves or Burnley, prime example. We'd go to Burnley and he'd completely change it up. And it's a bit like, why are you trying to fix a system that works? If it works against your Chelseas, your Cities, your Liverpools, it's going to work against Burnley. So why are you changing? So I think when he was going through his dry patch, this was before he integrated a number 10. I hated the style of football. When you wake up in the morning and you think my team is playing football tonight, you do not want to, you want to get excited. Like Tottenham, you've got Chelsea tomorrow, I believe. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning going, I'm buzzing, we've got Chelsea tonight. This is, this could be a turning point.
I'm not going to feel like that at all. I know what you're saying.
When Arsenal were playing and we were going through that rut, it was coming up to a game, and I'm waking up in the morning, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we've got to play these tonight. I don't want to watch this, but you've got to watch it. It's like a shock. Those they call it shock value videos where something really bad happens, but you can't take your eyes off of it.
Yeah,
that's what it was like watching Arsenal for that dry spell. It got to a point, and I hate to admit this, where we'd go 2-0 down against the bottom half of the table team. And I'm watching, I'm thinking, you know what? I hope we get spanked in Port Lesson today. I really do. We're already 2-0 down. I hope they take us to the cleaners so that something changes. I never went into a game thinking, I hope we lose tonight, because I never think that about Arsenal, But we go 2-0 down. I think, you know what? We ain't going to pull this back, so I hope they teach us a lesson. Because if we only lose 2-0 to Burnley, people can look back and go, well, it's just a couple of mistakes. Whereas if we lose 5-0 to Burnley, there's the shock value there, and people are going to go, right, we need to change something, and quick. But the style of play at the moment, now that the number 10's been integrated with Emile Smith-Rowe and Odegaard coming in on loan, it has brightened up. We have that attacking edge back. Last night was a freak show. I'm not counting that. It was a poor refereeing decision that caused the downfall of the game. I'm not saying that we were great and we deserved to win. We certainly didn't. But, I'm seeing more attacking football. There's nothing worse than sitting and watching a team defend for 90 minutes.
So let's get onto it now, Ozil.
So I'm not going to lie and say that I'm with the Arsenal fans and that I hated Ozil and I wanted him out. I was actually quite sad to see him go, if I'm honest with you. The Arsenal fans will turn around and say, oh yeah, he was on 350k a week, he was leeching the club, he was this, he was that. Lee Gunner mainly, he was one of the main antagonists in the Ozil situation. Ozil didn't sit down with the club and say, you give me 350 grand a week. That's what the club offered. The club offered it in. It's the same as you at work. If your work offers you a pay rise of over 200%, you ain't going to go, no, I'm not. You see, that would be unethical to take that. You're going to take it. Of course you are.
Yeah, and if you look at his stats as well for assists, it was crazy high as well, and probably one of the best playmakers I've ever seen in the Prem.
100%. I mean, with Ozil, it was. I loved him, and when when some of my friends were coming to me and saying, "Oh, Ozil was rubbish," this, blah blah blah, and I'm saying, you're not watching him. And I'm quite analytical when I watch Arsenal play football. And Ozil is not going to be the player that is going to be a box-to-box midfielder like Aaron Ramsey, where he's going to run 20 kilometres a game. That's not what Mesut Ozil is about. Ozil will quietly sit in the depths of the game. He will quietly sit and he will quietly move into positions where he knows that he can hurt teams. And play. You could look at Ozil and say, "Oh well, where was he last night?" Well, I'll tell you where he was. He was in a position that he was able to receive the ball to then play one pass through to a striker and score a goal. And yes, you could look at that and say, well, he only got one assist. Where was he for the rest of the game? That is how Mesut Ozil plays football. He is one step ahead of all of the other midfielders and the defenders. You may look at him and think, why is he so far out on the left? But he'll be shouting for the ball and he'll receive the ball and he'll play a killer pass through to create a chance. And that is what Mesut Ozil was about. And the problem that Ozil had, I mean, from a political point of view, he made some comments about the Muslims' treatment in China. And China basically turned, the Arsenal fan base in China basically said, while ever he is at the club, or unless we receive an apology, we are not watching Arsenal anymore. We are not going to be paying for the subscriptions. We will not be buying the shirts. We will not be doing this.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the
French blocked it, didn't they, and wiped you out the whole thing, which is, I believe, nearly $500 million or something. It is, it's something ridiculous. You can't do that.
Cash blow. From a business perspective, I understand. In my opinion, Ozil was frozen out by the board above. That's my own personal viewpoint. I believe he was frozen out by the board above because they sort of said, "Oh dear, if he plays, we're going to lose so much revenue from China, and we need that." And football is a business nowadays. I hate to say it, but it is. It's a business. From a business perspective, it was a smart idea, but from a playing perspective, I thought it was absolutely brain dead. And when he left for Fenerbahce, and I saw that smile back on his face, holding that scarf, coming off the private jet, landing in Turkey, I was so happy for him. It was heartbreaking because, I remember the deadline day when we signed him. I was up, my mum was sat with me, and she couldn't believe it, and I'm going nuts. And I had college the next day, and I just couldn't believe it. And to see it end the way it has, I think it's downright disgusting from Arsenal. As a club, recently they've blacked out all the profile pictures to stand against racism, which I respect, is brilliant. But do not do all of that if you're going to condemn one of your players for speaking out against the Muslim treatment in China. 100%. There is no rule book with this. If you are truly against racism and equality for all, don't block Ozil out for commenting on what actually is a brutal treatment of his religion in that country. That's not Ozil lying. That's not him making up assumptions. That was him saying, "Look, this is what's happening. These are the facts. This is the way that it's going." And Arsenal throws him out because of it for a business move to save a bit of money. And personally, I think it just shows why football to me is kind of rotting away to the rich and the powerful.
Yeah, or 1,000%. I mean, he's not a bad guy. I mean, I think the board was even more annoyed at him when they was trying to make redundancies for Gunnosaurus.
And he offered to pay his wages.
He made him look like a right fool.
He turned around. The board were like, "Right, Gunnosaurus, you got to go, mate. It's all done." And Ozil was like, "Whoa, here's a PR stunt. Here, Gunnosaurus, I'll pay your salary, mate. No problem." And then Arsenal were like, "Oh no, okay, yeah, no, you're not getting made redundant. Don't worry."
Have you seen Ozil's Twitter feed? He's been nothing but supportive for Arsenal. He always says, I watched the boys today. Fantastic result. It reminds me a bit. It's not to the same levels, but the whole, not even including the Premier League squad and the disrespect. same with us with Danny Rose. That guy's done so much. I didn't even give him a squad number.
I personally, I felt so sorry for Danny Rose. We've all seen the video of the documentary where he walks into Mourinho's office, and people were criticising him for it. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this kid's been at Spurs since he was a teenager, and he had one bad game against Liverpool, and he's completely frozen out the squad. When Alderweireld played poorly, Vertonghen played poorly, Serge Aurier played poorly. You know, Danny Rose has been the bread and butter of Spurs. You know, when he was an up and coming left back, he had Man United chasing him. He had City chasing him.
I'll never forget that goal he scored against City to get us in the Champions League
he
the
scored
first time.
Against Arsenal, you know, there were bigger clubs at the time. And this is no disrespect to Spurs because I don't want to come across as biased. At the time, there were clubs who were leaps and bounds above Spurs who were in for Rose, and he still said, "No, I'm a Spurs lad through and through." And they didn't give him a squad number this year. They just handed it straight to Reguilon, and it was a bit like, what?
It's because of his attitude. They say he's got a bad attitude, and because he's got a big thing about speaking out about racism. And if you do that, apparently you're a knobhead. I mean, look at all the back play that Lewis Hamilton gets, and AJ, and I know that's a totally different part, but he does argue a lot with Mourinho. And whilst I understand that, I get it. I get that you two don't get along. Letting the guy out, even if it's for nothing, he deserves our respect.
The thing is, I mean, I'm a joint manager of an amateur football club, Tipsy Toad FC. Just a bit of a shout out to the lads, aiming for a league win this year. And me and my co-manager Ash, we encourage players to speak to us if they're unhappy about something. We actively say to the lads, like, look, if you're not happy with something, you need to speak to us about it, and we will listen. We don't always have to agree, but we will always listen, and we will never ever ridicule a player that has got a different opinion to us. And I take it on board. You know, I've been on match days before where, you know, some managers that I played for when I was playing football, if you gave them your opinion, you wouldn't play for the next 3 weeks. I've had times this season where I've been stood on the sidelines managing a game of football, and one of the subs has come up to me and said, you know, I think this could work. And then I sort of take into it, I sort of think about it, and I go, actually, yeah, no, he's got a point there. You're all right. Let's have a look. And that's how a team, in my opinion, goes forward, by listening to each other and by allowing each other to have an opinion. And I don't think that Danny Rose has necessarily been given that chance by the fans, because everybody's sort of saying, you know, to Danny Rose, oh, you know, you're on this much money. You know, you should just sit down and allow the club to run it exactly the way that you want it to. And I don't think there's anything wrong with speaking out. And I do feel sorry for him. And I hope he gets a final big, because he's 30 now? I hope he gets that final big move and payday, because there's got to be a club in the Premier League that's looking at him and going, you know what, we can get another 3 years out of him. Let's stick him on 50 grand a week and have him with us and treat him well and respected. Because I don't believe that he's had that to Spurs for the last couple of seasons.
So, what's your club name again? Sorry, I do apologise. So, Tipsy Toe Football Club. They've come on Sunday, and let's just say they're going against another team. Now, I'm asking every person who comes on to, obviously, the podcast, do you take a knee, let's just say, before the game? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like it should stop now? Do you feel like it's getting too politicalised? Do you believe in the first place? Or are you with the Millwall fans, you know, who's stating that it's gone on too much and it's like the clap to the NHS and it's not even a part about it anymore? You know, what do you think as a co-manager regarding this? If one of the lads decided to stand up and not kneel, would he be allowed to play? I mean, you know, how can you? So, what's your thoughts about
this? The whole taking the knee thing. I think whilst ever footballers are getting ridiculed for the colour of their skin on social media, it continues. Because if you look at some of the comments made to Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, Reece James, you know, all of these players that have been racially abused on the internet, I think whilst ever we're taking, you know, if we're going to take the knee, there has to be a reason for it. Otherwise, in my opinion, if there's no reason to do it, if racism's not there, it can be quite patronising towards the Black Lives Matter group and towards black footballers. I think that can be patronising, but at this moment in time, racism is still alive and well in football. And this is the thing, touching on this, you get the Millwall fans who are there and some of the Chelsea fans as well. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I've seen videos, I can send you the links, where they're saying all lives matter, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, that isn't obvious. Yes, it is. But, if you're a white footballer and you have a horrendous performance, you're not getting the colour of your skin brought into abuse. It just doesn't happen. What are you going to say? Oh yeah, you're a white so and so. That doesn't happen. But these, the black players that are getting ridiculed just for the colour of their skin because of a bad performance, I think it's disgusting. So me personally, I think that whilst ever players are getting racially abused, that they're taking the knee is a middle finger up to the racists to sort of say, we don't really care. You know what I mean? We are united in this. If we did it on a Saturday when my lads play, we don't actually do it. If I'm being honest, we're still at grassroots level. So, with us lot, it's just a case of turning up. Whoever's not hungover, gets a game, and then we'll just get straight into it whenever the referee's finished his cup of tea. If my lads were to do it, and the referee came to us at the start and said, we're going to take a knee this game, I would expect all of them to follow through with the wishes of the referee in the league. If the Hope Valley Football League turned to me and said, yeah, your lads have got to take a knee, I'd expect every single one of them to adhere to that, because that is what the league is asking us to do. We are playing under the league. We are playing under the Derbyshire FA. If that is their request, that is what we do. If you don't agree with that, that's not a problem. I'm not. If your opinion is different, no problem at all. But don't turn up on the match day, in my opinion, because it is what we are being asked to do. And that's not me saying that, oh yeah, we're only taking a knee because we're being asked to do it. It's just, it is an issue in football today with racism. You see it at grassroots level, there's quite a few racist incidents that I hear about, luckily none from my club, of players calling Asian players names or black players names or different ethnicities names. And whilst ever that's happening, I think the taking of the knee does need to happen as well. You talk about people, you've asked me about the politics of it as well, and people talk about, you're bringing politics into football. I don't think it is politics when you've got to remember that, the Premier League is the biggest stage. We get more in the Premier League, they get more viewers than I think practically any other TV show. If you watch Monday Night Football, they get the most viewers more than anybody else. It's the biggest stage. So we should be making a message on the biggest stage.
Very well said, Will. Very well said, my friend. Now...
No, I'll just say thank you.
Go on, sorry. Right, so we've got about 12, 13, 14 minutes left. You said you've got some stats, by the way.
I certainly have. Yeah, so...
you want to read them out?
I wanted to talk a bit about transfers. And obviously there's been some new transfers coming in January. First of all, I want to talk about a summer transfer, which I think has gone a little bit under the radar. He's not played many games, but he signed for Tottenham. And from what I've seen of him so far, I'm really impressed with him. And I wanted to put it out there that this is what... No.
Fail.
to me, this is one of the most underrated transfers of the window. And it's Joe Rodon. I've been watching Joe Rodon when he's received his opportunities, and considering that he's come from a championship side with Swansea, the guy's a brilliant centre back. I think he's brilliant. And one thing that really stood out to me, he's played 7 matches for Spurs this season, 4 as a starter, 3 off the bench. And in those matches, he's attempted 8 clear tackles, and he's made every single one of them. In those 7 matches that he's played, he's only committed 1 foul. I think that's brilliant.
What a start.
And people might look at him and go, that might be Spurs being cheap or anything like that. But because he's not had had the goals and assists impact that Bruno Fernandes has had at Man United. You know, people are looking at him and going, well, he's just defensive cover. I genuinely think this guy could be the future of Tottenham centre-back. Yeah.
I think the Championship is now getting looked upon as the next big thing.
Oh, yeah.
It is so big. I believe it goes the Prem, Bundesliga, and then it goes the Championship now. And there's look at even rubbish players that people class him as. Daniel James. I mean, he had a great performance last night, you know. It's such a great thing. I mean, imagine Roland at Arsenal at the centre back. He would love it.
I mean, again, you've talked about Championship. I mean, here's a mental fact for you. The Championship is actually the most watched league in the world.
I thought it was third most watched. I thought he went to Prem, Bundesliga, and then the
I've read that the Championship is the most watched league in the world purely because of all the teams. You know, it's a big league, isn't it? What is it? Is it 24?
Yeah,
22.
I think it's most attendance.
That's it.
Attendance. I think that's.
But going back to signing players from the Championship, Liverpool have just done that. They bought Ben Davies from Preston. So when I read that on transfer deadline day, I'm thinking,
no,
who is this kid? You know, and after doing a bit of research, you know, he's a big guy, 6'1". Now that's not. I mean, Van Dijk is 6'4", but still 6'1" is commanding. But with Ben Davies as well, I mean, a bit of background research. He's only won 64% of his aerial duels in the Championship, which to me, if you're going to be coming to play the Champions, could be a bit better. But he makes it up for other areas. So he's got an 88% tackle success this season in the Championship with an average of 1.2 interceptions per game. So Liverpool have done the homework. You know, this guy could be good cover for, you know, whilst ever Van Dijk and Gomez are out. But then that brings you on to the other signing that they made from the Bundesliga, from Schalke, which is Ozan Kabak. Have you heard of him? So, interesting. These are Schalke stats. Because when he came in, I'm thinking, right, it's a loan with an option to buy, and the option to buy is £18 million. And I'm thinking, right, Schalke, they've been pretty much at the bottom of the Bundesliga all year. You know, is this guy actually going to be worth 18 million if Liverpool decide to fork out the money at the end of this loan period? So in Schalke, he's first in passes made in the entire team with 686. He's made 55 clearances this season, which again he's first with. He's blocked 11 shots, which is second. He's completed 57 out of 74 aerial duels, so he's good in the air. And he's completed 17 out of 24 completed tackles. And there it's 17 out of 24 tackles he's completed. So,
right. Sorry, I do apologise.
He seems like a good player, but one thing I have read as well, he's a bit of a hothead. And Liverpool...
Right.
In my opinion, over the last few seasons, they've had a good disciplinary record. They've not really had any major issues with that. So is a hot-headed centre-back like him, you know, the stats speak for themselves. He's clearly going to, you know, be okay at Liverpool. But I mean, I've seen it with Sergio Ramos. I've seen it with David Luiz. I've seen it with Pepe, Portuguese Pepe. These hot-headed centre-backs who have got good stats.
Yes.
You know, on paper, they're good stats, but they make rash decisions that can change games, you know, for the worst. So, I don't know. I think Liverpool are going to have to be cautious on that front when it comes to that. But, it looks like a solid bit of business. But, the Championship, you know, when you've got players like Joe Rodon coming in, Ben Davies, who I think could be a good fit at Liverpool. I think another player from the summer that's not been spoken about, you touched on it yesterday, was West Ham's Thomas Souček. He's been clinical for them this season. Yeah, he's a big guy. He's 6'4", so he's the same height as Van Dijk. But he's scoring goals left, right, and centre. West Ham are just punting balls into the box, and he's there. So,
when he first signed for West Ham, I thought he was going to be terrible.
He did,
because I believe he scored his own goal straight away, and I was like,
literally,
West Ham again.
It's funny because Arsenal were linked to Thomas Souček, and I'm looking at him and thinking, I don't want this guy. You know, it's got Kim Kallstrom written all over it. And if you for the listeners who don't know Kim Kallstrom, we signed him as a loan deal in the January transfer window. I think it was 2014, and he actually came without doing his medical. It was last minute, and they found a crack in his spine. So he didn't play for the So they were the vibes that I got. But then every time I get a live update on my phone that West Ham have scored, it's either Michael Antonio or Thomas Tuchel. So yeah, fair play to him.
Do you think Antonio should be given an England start? I rate him so highly. I was saying to my mate, I wish he would have come to Spurs or Mitrovic as well. But I know I do rate
Michael Antonio. I do rate him. I think he's a good player. I think he's done really well over the past few seasons for West Ham. I don't think he deserves an England start because if you look at the players who do play for England, Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane, those front three, which is around about where Antonio would slot in. Those front three can grab a game by the scruff of the neck and turn it on its head. Tottenham could be 1-0 down. Harry Kane can roll up his sleeves and score 4 goals in 12 minutes. Jadon Sancho can start for Dortmund, and within 20 minutes, he scored 2, assisted 1, and Dortmund have put the game to bed. Sterling is... I know he gets a lot of stick, but I think Sterling is a phenomenal player for City. He proved it at Liverpool. He's proved it at City. And he can take games by the scruff of the neck and flip it on each side. But that's not to say that I don't think he shouldn't be in the England squad. I think Antonio, if let's say we go to the Euros this summer, we make it to the semi-finals, we're playing Belgium, and it's 1-1. Sterling looks a bit tired. We need an injection of pace and a guy who's strong like a bull. Antonio's perfect to bring on. Really is perfect. Oh, yeah.
Reminds me of Darius Vassell. Now, we talk about Liverpool centre-backs, and I know they've got Ben Davies, etc., but I believe they've already got the answer already in their squad.
He's
actually... Do you know of Sepp Vandenberg?
I've watched him quite a few times this season. He's been playing frequently with the under-23s. He's a giant lad. He is massive.
Yeah.
If you see the first day that he signs for Liverpool, and he walks in and he meets Klopp, he's about a foot taller than Klopp, and Klopp's a tall manager. But he's actually gone on loan to Preston. That was part of the deal. So what happened is, obviously Liverpool says, we're going to take Ben Davies from you. We'll pay you the $2 million. And Preston sort of said, yeah, that's fine, but can we have someone back? So they said, yeah, it's Sepp Vandenberg. Goes to Preston with a big reputation. A great signing for Preston. It really is. And the guy gets bags of experience in one of the toughest leagues in the world. So I think it's a great move for all parties. Liverpool get the experience of Ben Davies, who can literally slot straight in. And then Sepp Vandenberg gets the experience with Preston, and hopefully comes back a better player. Now, here's a mental stat for you as well. Klopp has actually used 12 different centre-backs this season. That's true. He's experimented.
Is that true? That's crazy.
Centre-backs this season since they kicked off. And it shows because they are 21 points fewer at this second than what they were last season.
Last season, I know what you're saying in regard to that, but last season, whilst Liverpool fans will say to me that it was really good on them, everyone was rebuilding, apart from 1 or 2. I really do think that is why,
this
Mane Salah, unreal.
You look at City, who were, tipped to be the only people to challenge them for the title. City lost company. City had, they'd lost Vincent Kompany. They'd lost a couple of old guard players. And I do think, exactly. And when Kompany left, Guardiola said, we'll be fine with John Stones and Aymeric Laporte. And they weren't. They just weren't.
No.
Oh, they do.
Stone looks phenomenal this season, though. I mean, we nearly got him at Spurs.
And
we were so
the reason City look phenomenal is because of Ruben Diaz, in my opinion. They've got Ruben Diaz in. He's sat next to Aymeric Laporte. And when Laporte's been injured, John Stones has stepped it up. Really
He's got great. I can't believe that Laporte got straight back into that team. Stone is. You talk about stats. He's got something like a 96% completion rate. Diaz is passing. And of course, he gets the ball, passes it straight to Stones.
It's good, and I do think City will win. Actually, when I was at work, I did a Premier League predictor table where you put in the results for the rest of the season and see where you end up. And I've got it as City are walking it. Really, really are. You are, sorry?
Where do you think Arsenal's going to finish? Where do you think Arsenal's going to finish?
It's a tough one. I think we'll be looking to get it. I honestly think we'll be looking to get a Europa.
Do you think you're going to get four?
Honestly.
Hopefully. I don't
know.
You're not out the FA Cup, aren't you?
Which, again, that could work in our favour because we've only got the Europa League and the Premier League to worry about. I don't think we'll make top 4 at all. No matter how many times fans, try and convince me that we will. I don't think we will. Yeah. I think we'll be lucky to get a Europa League spot. And I honestly think that 6th place is going to be a battle between Spurs and Arsenal.
Well, we'll talk about that now. Because we're running quite late.
Definitely.
We'll talk about this tomorrow potentially. But it's about the UEFA Conference League. Now, this is going to be a third competition. So if basically you finish in the top half or have really good, sportsmanlike conduct, you'll enter this tournament. So what happens is 8 clubs. It's so crazy. 8 clubs join after the Europa League knockout stages as well. You're getting it with cup wins or like the finishers, basically anywhere in the top half. It's a group of 48 that goes down to 32. And 10 leagues eliminated from the Europa League playoffs actually qualify for it. So no matter where you basically finish, you will just get downgraded. So with teams like Spurs and Arsenal, even if not doing well, we're going to end up winning this Conference League, I know why UEFA are doing it. They want to get more money, get small clubs. I just think it's way too much football. I mean, what do you think about it? Do you think it should even be a thing? Or do you think people like Burnley should have a chance?
I was having this conversation yesterday, and we were talking. It was a friend of mine. We were talking about what we believed to be a hectic schedule. Now, as a fan, don't get me wrong. As a fan, I absolutely love the schedule at the moment. You only have to turn on the TV from 6 o'clock. And a game's kicking off, and I'm thinking, my night is sorted. I've got football at 6 o'clock. Yeah, I've got football at 6, football at 8. And then I've got the Twitter fallout after all of this. It's brilliant. United won 9-0 yesterday. What a game from a neutral point of view to watch. But then I also think that you look back to Liverpool last season when they were in the Club World Cup. They had a game against Villa in the League Cup that wasn't allowed to be moved. The day after, they played the Club World Cup. And then 2 days after that, they had a Premier League game. Now, yes, you can argue these players are on silly money and they should be able to cope with the demands of this. But you think about the longevity of players. It's the same as you think about a boxer or a mixed martial arts fighter. If they fight, 10 times a year, they will only probably be able to be at their peak for 3-4 years before they.
Well, we met when I was obviously boxing. You short version of your brother-in-law, fantastic guy, by the way. But it was crazy because the amount of travelling I had to do. I had 4 fights in that month because I had a terrible promoter. And my body was drained. Yeah. And not even drained from the fighting, from the travelling. Now that is me, at a poor level of boxing. So when you're at elite sports level of a footballer and you're training, some clubs start at 6 a.m, some start at 10. Yeah. But it is a proper full-time job, and then you're expected to travel. And then I dare anybody to go from here to Qatar and then back.
And you've got to think of the players' mental health and all of this, because they are at training and then they'll go home and they're absolutely knackered. They'll have an hour with the family and kids. They're in bed and then they're up again doing it all again. And then they go travelling for 3 days that they're not spending with their wife and kids and friends. And then they're back and then it's a recuperation period, and then they're straight back into training, into games and things. And no wonder so many players are, I don't know, not acting. Yeah, you could say acting up, outside of football, because they don't have any relief. They don't have, Klopp mentioned it about the German winter break, where the players are allowed to have a month where they have Christmas with their families. They still train in that, but they get that time mid-season where they sort of just wind it back a little bit. And, they say, you could say, if you do that in English football, well, they're not going to do well in Europe. Bayern Munich, how many times have they won the Champions League? They could spank anyone, and they have this break mid-season.
Well, look at their national league. I mean, their national team. Their national team is so much above ours, and reasons like that. Have we got any more stats, by the way, Will?
When it comes to not necessarily any more stats, it's just more of, I'm looking at the table at the moment, and the two big battles that I'm seeing is between Liverpool and City. You look at the league table at the moment, you think, right, okay, there's no chance of Liverpool winning the league. Well, they could. They're only 4 points behind them, and City have got a game in hand. It only takes City to have a bad run, and Liverpool are straight back in it. And then the other battles between Arsenal and Tottenham. There's a 2-point gap. Spurs have got 2 games in hand to go over us at Arsenal. But again, I think if we're talking, sort of stats or something to bring an end to the podcast, I think those are the 2 battles that people are going to be watching towards the end of the season, and that you want to keep the closest eye on, because it is going to be between, Arsenal have got St Tottenham Day, and between Liverpool and City for the title. I don't think Liverpool have got are out of this run yet, and I think they're going to be a team to watch now that they've got reinforcements at centre back. And I honestly believe that people should be keeping an eye on the Arsenal-Tottenham situation, because we're both in a bad rut of form, and I think it'll be funny to see who finishes above each other on that one. Yeah, 100%, mate. I'm there.
We have got you tomorrow, Will. Is that right?
Yeah.
So for tomorrow, just for our fans, just to know, we will be discussing Will's personal opinion on Lampard, if he should have been kept or if he should have gone for Tuchel, if Roman Abramovich should put them up on Gumtree. Should clubs absolutely keep faith like they didn't? I keep hearing, people going, Gunnar Solskjaer, but you've got to realise that form has only just come in. But we'll be discussing all of these, if Ancelotti should be going or staying, if Mourinho should be out, if Arteta should be out, talking about what managers would be coming in. The Aston Villa would discuss, and if Wolves will be getting rid of their manager. So we'll be discussed tomorrow, including even Sean Dyche.
No, it's been brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I can't wait to speak to you again tomorrow and hopefully get some more good football insights into the way the Premier League's going at the moment.
Okay. If would you like to say goodbye message to people? Obviously, we've just lost Captain Tom. Condolences and everything.
You're talking of you speak of British heroes. Captain Tom was the hero. He risked his life, for us at 19 years old, and then he risked his own health for us at 99 years old to raise some money for the NHS. He is a credit to Great Britain. He is a credit to England, to the United Kingdom, and he is one of the guys that when I have grandkids, I will tell them of Captain Sir Tom, and I will tell them of the heroics that he did. And if anybody's looking for a role model and how they want to base their life, just look at what that man did. And he's got a book out, actually, if you really want to pay tribute. His book is called Tomorrow Will Be a Better Day. I believe it's called that. Anyway, don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. But it should be an amazing read. And rest in peace. What a man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's never too late to raise £33 million as well to charity. Did that 100 of his garden.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to it tomorrow.
Thank you for joining us here on T.N.Bull. You're more than welcome, Will. And we will be seeing you tomorrow, sir.
Who's on?
Game prediction for tonight.
Who is it?
I believe West Ham are playing today. Let me just get it up quickly. I should have really had this information before.
I think City will beat Burnley. I think Leicester will beat Fulham. I think the game to watch tonight is Leeds v Everton. I could see Leeds beating Everton.
What do you reckon?
To be honest with you. Yeah.
Very, very, very exciting football.
Yeah.
To be able to the captain both up like we were saying.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do quickly because obviously we are wrapping
City
this up. I'm going to ask you for scores. Burnley versus City.
Leicester 3-0.
Okay. Fulham, Leicester. Wow, big chat.
Leeds
Everton.
3-2. Ooh.
And Aston Villa versus
winning that
West
2-1.
And then the last one, Liverpool versus Brighton.
I'm going to go with Liverpool 5-0.
Big shout there. Right, guys, we'll all question his absolute mental state tomorrow and see how crazy he is. Thinking Liverpool's going to win 5-0 or potentially this is a Liverpool team that also could lose 7-0. Who flipping knows, eh? Well, thank you very much for joining us on T.N.Bull today. Thank you very much for joining us, Will.
Speak to you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.
Talk to you guys tomorrow.